G'day everyone, welcome back to Roll with the Punches. My name's Tiffanee Cook and I'm your host, and as always I'm here with a very interesting guest, Sergeant Mark Thomas. Welcome to the show.
Hi Tiff, thanks for having me.
How are you, mate?
Good. Self?
I thought you might come in uniform.
No, that's been packed away for a while now, so no, all good.
Yeah, awesome. We've known each other for a while now.
Yes.
We've had quite a few good, deep and meaningful conversations.
Many times.
I'm ready for another one.
Excellent. Let's do it.
We just want to have a chat about your story
Yeah.
and about your career in the Victoria Police. You've been 2.5 decades now.
Yes. Has gone incredibly quick.
Yeah?
Incredibly quick. It's had some incredible highs and some incredible lows, just on a personal front, but seeing just the way we've evolved and society's evolved, and it's been fascinating. A truly fascinating ride.
Yeah. How old were you when you started in the force?
I turned 24 whilst in the academy.
Yeah.
My second week in the academy.
Yeah. What was it like as a kid?
I was still a kid, yeah, absolutely. I'm meant to be growing up, but I refused to do so. It was good. Parts of it was confronting, especially going through the academy. At that stage, we went and watched an autopsy to learn about the coronial process when someone dies. So that was, although I found it intensely interesting, there were a couple of occasions where it was like, because I'd never been exposed to those type of things before, so that was different. And then when we all graduated, it was just very different. I remember walking out of what was then called the City Patrol Group the first day in uniform, out on the street with a loaded firearm, and I just thought the world had stopped and everyone's looking at me, which of course is not true, but that's the sort of the mindset that a lot of us have. And I've spoken to a few other people about that, and everyone sort of thinks the same sort of thing. So, but then it's off to work. Very interesting.
Do you kind of feel like, because this is a really silly analogy, people will go, come on, that's not the same thing. But I remember when I first did my personal training certificate, and then I finished it and I got the certificate, and people were like wanting me to write them a program, and I felt like I have no idea how to do that. Is that what it was like becoming a cop and walking out on the street and going, oh,
yeah,
I don't
because
feel trained for this.
Like the general public, that they don't know that you are day one out of the academy, and you're expected to know all the answers. So it can be confronting. Not, I won't say frightening, but it's very game on here. I remember when I was learning to direct traffic, and I said to this bloke, mate, you can't turn right from the left-hand lane, and he pointed at the hook turn sign. Yeah, you can. But like, he goes, it's all right, mate, you're obviously new to Melbourne. And I said, yeah, I am. So then, okay, and then it's just that expectation that you know every road rule, you know every speed limit everywhere, you know every law and things like that. So, you got to be on your toes pretty early.
Do you put on a bit of a facade?
Well, you're a different person, and that's I was a work mark, and then I was non-work mark. So when you're at work, and this is, you're a person representing Victoria Police. You got to, there's expectations that you behave certainly a certain way. You uphold, the things that you've sworn to do. So, not that when you're out of uniform you go and do, illegal things, but it's the way you portray yourself has got to be in line with all expectations. Yeah.
In terms of the mental preparation as a whole, was there any emphasis on that? Was there any expectations for you?
Well, going through the academy, like the autopsy was part of the coronial process, us learning that, because you learn a lot of law and things. We were also exposed to a lot of crime scene videos, crime scene photos, and the like, and I think that was a bit of a desensitisation process.
Yeah.
But look, I knew what I was getting into. Police go to, like all first responders, we go to trauma scenes. So, like my first day out of the academy I went to a drug overdose. So I was very early. Went to tragically the person died, and that was day one. out for me. So I got a really early introduction to it. And look, for the most part, so for about the first 6.5 years, I went to many trauma incidents and was fine with it. Fine in the sense that I was able to do my job. It didn't have a heavy impact on me or anything like that. So that all changed on April 8, 2003, when I went to a different type of suicide. I'd been to a number of suicides before, but I hadn't actually been to this type. Obviously won't go into details, but that day changed the course of my life. And it's like, I was presenting a few weeks back, and it was like, for those that have seen Back to the Future, where Biff finds the sports book that gives all the results for the future, and it creates a different timeline. And this day created a different timeline for me, and I'm still recovering to this day from that.
And you knew that on the day? Like, is that just an immediate?
Immediate. I looked at the deceased for a blink of an eye, which Google tells me is 0.33 of a second.
Yeah.
And I physically felt it in my chest. I turned away and I just walked outside, and I knew it. And this is where, I suppose I put the caveat on it, incredibly naive to mental health. Me personally had no education and just didn't do anything about it. Like I knew something wasn't right, but look, a fair bit of the typical male Aussie attitude, I should be right, mate.
Yeah.
We'll be right.
If you had witnessed one of your colleagues experience that, and you knew they were experiencing that, with the knowledge that you had then, would you have flagged that for them, or was it not really? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident I would have.
Yeah. Wow.
And this is where, and look, my entire journey to me has been completely fascinating. Not one that I recommend going through, obviously, but completely fascinating and always empathetic. And I was asked this last week, why did you want to be a copper? And I said, well, I want to help people. And I've always had an empathetic nature.
Yeah.
So I would have dived in and I would have said, I don't think you're quite right here, mate. What's going on? And sort of cared for him. But I certainly didn't look at that. If I had a mirror, I wasn't looking at me. I think I was either just so entrenched on looking outwards, I never actually looked inwards.
It always fascinates me that we do that.
Yeah.
So that was 2003.
Yeah.
2013 was the next big event, wasn't it? Or the repercussion of that event.
So it all culminated basically. So that's on April 8, 2003, that incident just slowly started chipping away at my resilience. And then because I didn't do anything about it, I didn't see the signs, the symptoms, the whole works. And this is where the value of education and knowing the signs and symptoms of depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress and things like that. So I think it was the 6th of February 2013. Ironically, it was at a health and safety wellbeing day at work, and one of our psychs up, and he had a slide up that had all these sort of boxes of the signs and symptoms of depression, anxiety, PTSD, and suicide.
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember him saying, and I can still picture it, don't worry if you're ticking a box or two. Generally, everyone does. And I was sitting in the front row going, what happens if you're ticking every box? Which I was. And that's when it was the realisation that I'm in a world of trouble here. So, and then that Sunday night, I landed in hospital. I had what my first treater described as a catastrophic loss of self, which is basically everything come tumbling down. And I don't like using the words mental breakdown because I just don't like the saying, I don't like the words, but people can understand what I'm trying to say when I say that. So, and probably the safest option for me at that time was to be in hospital. So spent the next near 2 weeks in hospital, and I went down to Geelong Clinic, a private mental health facility, just let the dust settle and then begin the treatment after it.
With that event, did you raise your hand and say, I need help? Or did your loved ones, were they the ones that did it just come crumbling down around you?
Yeah, so I put my hand up on the Wednesday after that forum. So I left work and rang and booked in to see a psych.
Yeah.
But that through the work, we've got external providers that help us in internal psychs and things like that. But that was for Monday at 3 o'clock, but I was sitting in hospital on Sunday night. So I never actually got to that psych appointment. So, but I was sitting in a psych clinic, so it's probably a better place.
Wow.
So it was, I had I suppose best described that catastrophic loss of self. Kind of looks like, well, it was a massive anxiety attack. And I just picked up my phone and, my normal brain basically shut down, is the way I describe it. My policing brain kicked in, which was thankfully for me. So I picked up my phone, gave it to my wife, and she said, "Ring welfare. I'm in a world of trouble here." So that would have been frightening for her.
Yeah. What does she say about that day?
Yeah, different.
Did she see it coming?
Not completely, but she did mention on numerous occasions to go see someone about my sleep patterns because it's not right.
Yeah.
And which is, of course, one of the great symptoms. And I said, no, I'm a shift worker, so so be it. So I've got to wave the white flag there every time. Yes, I was wrong. She was right.
This is the tricky thing with first responders like yourself.
Yeah.
Is that when you look at the structure of the way that we need to work, we're disrupting sleep, we're disrupting social connections, we're disrupting the way we eat, all of these pillars, which it's really easy to point to those and go, oh, that's because of this, rather than that's a symptom.
Yep. And like we do night shifts for a week, and like it's not just us, like as a society as a whole, like supermarkets, they've got night shift workers, and if you're not seeing daylight for a week at a time, so when you, especially when you're doing it in the middle of winter,
it's
horrible
lamp, bro.
for your
Get
body.
A happy lamp. Got a happy lamp.
Yeah, and it's I think is it vitamin D?
Yeah.
So your body's not getting any of that, which is obviously not good for you.
What was the recovery time? So, like at that point, hospitalised, catastrophic loss of self. You're still working for Vic Police, but what was the timeline of getting back to work? And did you think you were going to go back to work? What did that feel like?
At the start, while I was sitting in hospital, I didn't actually think I'd work ever again. But that's real early doors, and my brain was obviously not in a real good place at that stage. It was a complete badlands between the years. So I had about 7 weeks off, all up, and then I started a return to work program on 2 days a week for 4 hours. And for the first probably 2 or 3 weeks of that, I'd go home and sleep. Like 4 hours was just wiping me out. Wow. And then once I become accustomed to that, I'd increase to 5 hours. Or actually I went to, instead of Tuesday and Thursday, 4 hours, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So having good breaks in between. Yeah. Excuse me. And just continue to build that up until full time, which took 2.5 years all up to do. But I had a really good run. Fantastic support from my senior sergeant, my inspector, super, assistant commissioner, the whole works, everyone. I've been superbly supported all the way through. So incredibly grateful for that, because that's without that support, I would be ill health retired. So it's great. I've still got a career. I've had a great week of work this week. Got some really good work done and highly effective. So still contributing. But yeah, just got to watch. I've got to watch the backyard to see what's going on. Yeah. Non-stop.
It's really fascinating, and I'm so glad to hear that that you were supported. And because keeping you in the workforce and in that industry means that you have someone inside there with the lived experience, right? So everybody knows, and there's an awareness that this can happen, that we all need to keep our eyes on it. What have you learned along the way? What were more of the signs and symptoms? How can other people that are working in similar roles or different roles that might have similar experiences, what can they look for?
Well, sleep patterns. Sleep patterns are a ripper. But again, that idea that shift work does knock us around a lot. The not wanting to go out and do things that you like doing, that's a real classical symptom. So like for me, my first sign of anxiety is my body heats up. And like I look back throughout the 10 years previous, and there was multiple times I was having anxiety attacks. I just wasn't recognising what they are, which is, you know, again, fascinating, completely bizarre at times that I didn't recognise these things. Getting snappy, getting upset at stuff that you shouldn't be getting upset at. Loss of concentration, loss of memory. You know, you just, when, you know, it's okay to not be okay, which is a classical saying now, but people will know within themselves if they're just, something's not feeling right. Yeah. And that's, you know, if you look on the Beyond Blue website, they've got a great checklist, and saying Black Dog Institute, all those marvellous institutions have got great checklists of depression, anxiety, OCD, etc. Yeah. And even PTSD. Just get to know them, like not to check them off, but just have an awareness of it. So if it does, these things start to creep in, well, then you can do what I didn't do, is get to the psych, get to the GP, have a chat, and nip it in the bud before it takes hold and end up in a clinic like I did.
Yeah. Have you seen or experienced people that have been able to learn that and land there before the point? I'm just thinking about, it's working.
Yeah, I've seen a few. A few people I used to work with recognise something's not quite right. That, again, it's a bit of a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, and it's a good one. Yeah. In that they know within themselves something's not right here. Go to the GP or a psych and have a chat. In fact, like I've heard that there's been some recruits come out of the academy, and straight away they're ringing our welfare unit to get an appointment with a psych, and they go to see the psych and they go, oh, I'm fine, I just want to create a relationship. So if you know me and I know you, so if I don't start feeling something's not quite right, then I can come here. And the hard psych sessions are the first few, when you're trying to build up trust and rapport. Yeah,
which is obviously not easy when you're in a bad place.
Exactly. So they've already got this going, which is, I reckon, is extraordinarily brilliant. So,
yeah. God, that's fascinating. Tell me about, I guess, we've had a lot of really vulnerable conversations about suicidal ideation and those really dark times. Can you share a little bit about, I guess, what you've learned about your own experience, or maybe talking to others about that?
So the most important thing to me, I was given a document in hospital called Thoughts Are Not Facts. And it was about 4 pages long, and I put it down and I didn't read another word. I didn't want to know anything else other than that. What I took so much out of that heading, Thoughts Are Not Facts. Yeah. So at that stage, like I bottomed out in hospital. I got to a point where I realised I know why people suicide. Because it's just not sustainable to live with that incredible level of mental pain. Yes. And I've tried to come up with words to describe what that feels like, and I can't. I can't. I don't. Yeah. I don't have the words for it. It's just extraordinary mental pain. So, and I see why people suicide, because they're not doing it to kill themselves, they're doing it to escape that pain. That's the way I sort of look at it now. Yeah. And, you know, like there were times where, like, I had rampant suicidal thoughts early on, but I was never going to take that step. It was just a thought, but obviously enormously confronting. Yeah. So when I saw this Thoughts Are Not Facts, I've gone, just because I'm thinking it doesn't mean it's factual. Yeah. And that was, look, it wasn't the magic pill, but it certainly took all the confronting nature of it out of the equation. Yeah, yeah. So, and one of my early treaters, Paige, brilliant psych, she said, you're a detective, investigate. When you're having thoughts, investigate. You're not going to find any evidence whatsoever. Yeah. And she put that terminology into my world, into how I've been thinking for years and years and years as a police member. And every time I'd have, you know, even when I was feeling low, really low mood, I would investigate it, and inevitably I'd come up with the answer as to why that's happening. And I'd put, you know, corrective actions in place, and which would sort of draw me up. And then, you know, if those ideations come back, well, thoughts are not facts, dude. And they just wash off now.
Yeah.
Well, not that I've had them for years, but that's how I got through it. And that's, like a lot of people, just because you're thinking it certainly doesn't mean that you have to do it.
Yeah.
And, it's a sign that there's an underlying issue there. So get to the psych, have a chat.
I love it. I had a recent chat to Michael Donoghue, and I beautifully, he shared when I asked him how, like, he had an incident where he was going to drive into a tree.
Yep.
And I asked him, was that the last time you had these thoughts, or how long did it take? And he opened up and said that he actually still has them to this day, but he just has, like you said, and we talked about the thoughts are not facts from your last podcast. And I think it's important because I think of times, even with myself, when I might feel low or stressed and isolate a little bit, and it doesn't matter how much you understand that in the moment it's hard to reach out. What do you think the antidote to that is? What can make it easier to reach out when it's hard to reach out?
Good question. It's really difficult, and it's what I encourage, like I've presented to a lot of members, what I say is please get your phone out and put welfare's number in there. Just please do it.
Yeah.
Because when I was at not my lowest, but on that night where I had that anxiety attack that landed me in hospital, I had welfare's number in my phone. So it was just simple to, rather than, I don't know welfare's number, or how do I do it? I don't want to ring the station. You can just ring it straight away.
Yeah.
But the hardest thing, because when your brain is wigging out or you're in a really low mood, it's not thinking right.
Yeah.
So you think the antidote might be to go get, a whole heap of junk food to make yourself feel better, which, is the complete...
Who would do that?
Which is the complete opposite of what you should be doing. It could be ploughing into a couple of bottles of wine or something, which is the complete opposite of what you should be doing. So speaking to those around you, family, friends, colleagues, whatever, someone, people in your house ultimately is great, but then obviously some people live by themselves, so they haven't got those people there. So it's having those people in your phone, in your favourites in your phone or something that you know that you could ring any time of day or night and they're going to come running and help you out. So it's just having that idea that just reach out. Like it's 2022, we're getting a lot better at it, society as a whole, that more people are, putting their hands up, reaching out, speaking to clinicians, seeing their GPs. I'm medicated, I haven't got a problem with it. You know what? I've got mates that got heart issues and they're medicated for life as well. So there's no difference between physical and mental medication. So it's just, put your hand up. Like, go to the GP, go to the psych. It's fine.
And I just reckon the conversations, I reckon when we start to have these conversations, even just one-to-one, and understand that other people actually in moments feel these same feelings. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's not taboo. And, maybe at some point you can't reach out in the moment, but you can reach out and say, I've just been through a moment. Yeah. And then it starts to close the gap. Well, that's what I find, that if I'm feeling really low, I mightn't reach out to people, but I might reach out the next day and be like, I had a really shit day. Yeah. And then you start to build this relationship where people get that and they might look out, or they'll see behaviour changes, and rather than call me if you need me, they start checking in. Yeah, yeah. And like when we look around in Australia as a whole, it's, on average, what is it, 1 in 5 or something are living with a mental health condition. How many people do you know? Yeah. So you'd be surprised about how many people, like, just speaking in my world, like I was very open about it from the word go. Yeah. For some reason, I'm just built in a way where I'm more than happy to talk about it and bring light to it. And how many people I know that I never knew previously, they'd come up and say, yeah, I'm diagnosed depression as well, or I've suffered anxiety my whole life and things like that. Never knew it, but again, exactly as the saying there, it's opening up these conversations, it's bringing more of it to light, which is
ultimately what we want.
How can people follow the foundation, support it, get involved, maybe volunteer? Like what's the options?
Code9ptsd.org.au is the website. Facebook /Code9ptsd. I have trouble saying that word. Instagram /Code9ptsd. And funny enough, Twitter, Code9ptsd. So it's everything. If you just Google Code9ptsd, pretty much all our stuff comes up.
I love it.
It's awesome.
Thank you so much for today. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for continuing to share your story.
Thanks for having me, Tiff. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.